Welcome to Screen Quest, a podcast where a fellowship of film lovers and armchair movie experts play film roulette. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Waterman, joined by May Finch.
Hello, hello.
And Will Rotondi.
Hey, how's it going?
It is going well. On this week's episode, we're going to be talking about the role of the lifetime for Robin Williams in Good Will Hunting. We'll, of course, draw a side quest. But first, Godzilla Marathon Update 2.0. So I am officially 1/3 of the way through the Godzilla franchise with regard to Toho specifically made films. I misspoke slightly in the last podcast when I said there's 33. There are 33 films if you count the anime, which I am not going to watch. Like they're the Netflix produced like anime. I'm sticking to the main line. So the good news for me is I have 3 less films that I need to watch, but I have made through 10 of them. Technically almost 11. I was in the middle of Godzilla versus Hedorah before we started this podcast, and that is the 11th film. And I'm happy to say that despite some real dark times in the Godzilla like franchise, some real low stinkers, there's been some decent movies, and in fact the one I'm watching right now, Godzilla versus Hedorah, is amazing. Like my jaw's on the floor with how like original and like fun it is. So the premise is that there's like a sludge monster from outer space that just feeds on pollution, and like it's a time where like that must have been very much at the forefront of conversations in the late 60s, early 70s, and Japan is like suffering for the sins of their transgressions against Mother Earth with this monster that's getting bigger and more powerful by the second from all the pollution that it's feeding on. It's got lots of like psychedelic like 60s and like 70s kind of like imagery and like songs and music. Like I've not seen anything like this in the Godzilla like franchise, and I think it's amazing. Like really enjoying it. Contrastly, like I said, there's been some rough ones. I hate Baby Godzilla like so much. I just like the one that I watched before that was called All Monsters Attack, and it features a talking Baby Godzilla who befriends this child in his imagination. Like he's like a kid that's getting bullied, and like size wise doesn't even make sense. Like he's the size of the child one minute, and then he's like a quarter of the way up Godzilla the next minute. And a guy, I just hate that little like cretin. Like the best part about that movie was that he gets like absolutely like battered for most of it by other monsters. Like I was like, oh yeah, kill him. Like I just can't stand it. Like the design is terrible on that thing. And I hate like they gave him the braying sound of a mule or donkey as like one of his sounds that he makes, and it's just like really annoying. And yeah, I hate everything about that little piece of crap. So
Is it better or worse than talking Pikachu?
I mean, I never found talking Pikachu to be that like what were we talking, like Detective Pikachu or just regular Pika? Like what's the talking?
No, like Detective Pikachu.
Oh yeah, I mean that's Ryan Reynolds, so that was like fine. I had a great time at that movie. I bought 2 pitchers of beer thinking that my brother and I were going to split both of them throughout the course of that movie and another film we were doing as a double feature. My brother only had 1 pint and was like, oh, I didn't want any more beer. And I'm like, you told me to get 2 pitchers. So he had to drive me home. And I was very drunk. So maybe that's also why I didn't find Detective Pikachu to be that bad. But like, anyway, Godzilla Marathon going quite well, even though there's been some stinkers, and I have been posting those reviews on Letterboxd, sticking to like 3 sentences or less. And since I've just finished 10, I'm going to post a ranking of the first 10 pretty shortly here, just for fun on Twitter, and I'll do that probably at each 10 mark. So at 20 I'll do it again, and 30 I'll do it to wrap it all up. So it better be worth it. That's all I can say. It's a lot of movies with Godzilla. Okay, before we go to the side quests, Will was kind enough to point out in our little private group chat that The Abyss is coming back to movie theaters. I think it's like one night only, right? It's like a very short engagement for a 4K special edition remaster. This is, of course, the James Cameron film that is all about the mysteries of the deep, dark ocean. May, you said you've not seen it, so we're going to try to veer away from like major spoilers. But Will, like, I'm assuming since you dropped this in our chat, you're a fan of this film, yeah?
I actually do like it. I was very bad at trying to tell May what the plot was. And so I've kind of been like scrolling notes to remind myself because I'm like, why were they down there again? Yeah, it's like a civilian crew that's going down to like look for a nuclear submarine. Um, there's like the expanded version of this film too that has like a lot more overtones about like political unrest versus like the theatrical cut. So I mean, I didn't look to see if it's going to be like if the remastered version is going to be theatrical or not, but
I think
I
it
like
is.
either version. Like I like either version. I think that a lot of people don't like, maybe this would have been like a good choice for like the movie that you think most critics didn't like. I feel like the vibe is that most
Oh.
people were not a fan of The Abyss, but I could be wrong about that because I don't know, I like it. But basically just like an oil rig crew that's going out to try and look for a submarine, and they get caught in a storm, and like the obviously the storm's on the surface, they can't come back up to the surface and they have to stay down there, and then the other stuff happens along the way. And there's this mysterious force that's down there that they're trying to figure out what it is. A lot of cool special effects that Chris was mentioning off the podcast, but we're definitely like groundbreaking at the time and segued very well into other Cameron projects like Terminator 2.
So confirmed it is the special edition, which I don't know if I've actually seen. So
What?
I might go see this in theaters just because like if it's like James Cameron's like one of the few directors when I see director's cut or special edition, I'll actually sit up and pay attention. Aliens like comes to mind, like that's his preferred version of the film, and like probably 10% of the population seen it, and it is by far the better version of Aliens. A little bit longer, it's like probably close to 3 hours, but for monetary reasons they didn't release it into theaters, and I don't know if it was the same thing with The Abyss, like maybe the runtime was getting a little too long for like the more length of the movie the less times they can show it, so that's usually what that comes down to a lot of times with box office. But
I'm pretty sure because I feel like, yeah, it's 171 minutes. So yeah, I feel like Cameron was like, now is my time. Everybody's going to see these Marvel movies that are forever long, and my Avatar films can be the same length. So let's do it. Let's double down.
yeah, again, I don't mind, like that guy like has earned, like, I mean, so much benefit of the doubt. I love when Avatar 2 came out, and a lot of people, including myself, I had some sort of like, some doubts. So like, yeah, like what's the staying power about, like, are people going to show up for this? And the answer was like, oh yeah, absolutely. They are like going to show up in droves. Yeah. Sorry, if you can hear my dog. He's whining back there. What's the matter, buddy? Come here.
He's like, I saw Avatar as well,
What's the matter?
and it was good.
Sorry about that.
You're good. He can join the conversation too. He's welcome.
He
But
probably has as much to say as I do on this film. So
How about The Abyss? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. What are his thoughts on
it's a good December flick, like to go see. Like if you want to see something that is like pretty creative. I watched it over the pandemic with Marianne, and she liked it. Like I think it's held up really well. It's got like a lot of Cameron films, like a fairly well written like female like protagonist, like who has a lot to say and do and is interesting and is not just like a love interest, right? Like, which is always appreciated, especially for an 80s film. And Michael Biehn is the bad guy, which is like fun because normally, like at least in that time, like he was like always kind of the hero character. So it's fun. Like this is like pre-Tombstone, where he got to be a bad guy again.
Nice. Yeah.
And not even really a bad guy, like in the typical Cameron fashion, like for some of his films, like he's just kind of somebody that has a point of view, right? And like he has good reasons, or at least from his perspective, to do the things that he wants to do. Like he's not as clear cut, I think, as like some of the like bad guys you would see in a movie like this. But
yeah, I definitely recommend checking out the director's cut because I think some of the like political overtones that are emphasized a bit more toward the end, or actually even at the beginning too, I think are relevant and reflected by the characters and kind of that sort of distrust that happens along the way. So
is it Cold War type stuff? Is that like what they're Yeah, I figured. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah. So kind of like Crimson Tide, another film that we've talked about.
Yeah.
Almost back.
Or The Thing, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
Um, the other thing that like I'll just add as a little bit of trivia for you, Will, since you're a South Carolinian, did you know that up until like very recently, the sets were still like up, just really dilapidated. So they filled it in these old like nuclear, like coolant
Yeah.
tanks in like outside of Charleston.
Yeah.
And there was like these aerial shots of it all kind of like falling apart, and they finally, I think, like dismantled it. But um I had no idea, like until I watched it most recently, that they filmed it so close to where we lived.
Yeah, I would recommend to anybody that wants to on YouTube. There's a video, or at least that's where I found it. There's a video about like all the stuff that went wrong in the production of this movie, and how it's like a miracle it ever got finished, and also kind of unfortunate for some of the actors and how things ended for like I guess their relationship with James Cameron and how that all went over. So,
I'm glad to
but
hear
yeah.
he's mellowed in his older age. Like he was on, I think it was a Mark Maron podcast, like I heard recently, and he was promoting like within the last year, and he talked a lot about having to do some soul searching. And he like kind of always knew that he had this reputation, you know. Um, and like he's mellowed out a little bit. Maybe like switching like to vegetarianism like helped him. I don't know. Like, but he's got like a farm in New Zealand or something now. And anyway,
I
yeah,
do think that just as like a random aside, like I feel like you have, I don't know, it's very strange to me. You get like directors who, on the one hand, are very talented and have some good, like, I don't know, sense of authority with getting stuff done, but then conversely are also like shitty people. Like to their actors, and I'm like, I don't understand how you could be so like talented and like, you know, a go-getter, and then just like railroad the people that you need to get you the vision that you want. So
it's
yeah.
that industry. I think some of it was like the times. I think like
Yeah.
we romanticized for so long this idea of like the tortured artist, the angry genius, you know. And I think thankfully like we've slowly gotten away from that, or trying to as a society, to be like, yeah, it doesn't really excuse, like just because you're a genius at what you do doesn't excuse like shitty behavior.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know like the whole entire like set of Aliens shut down for like 2 or 3 days because like something as simple as like he didn't want to respect the like tea time culture of the British like crew working on the film.
Yep. Yep.
And they were like, fuck it, like we just
Yeah,
won't
like,
work.
oh hell
Fuck you,
no.
fuck you. Yeah, like we're just not gonna work on this. Like good luck making the movie without a crew.
Yeah.
And Sigourney Weaver had to kind of like famously step in and like kind of mediate like a solution to that. And they had worked with Ridley Scott on Alien, you know, who was a British director who totally understood tea time and some of the cultural like nuances there. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, I agree with you, Will. It is like it's always kind of wild to me, like some of the stories you hear from, especially like 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, like films.
Mm. Yep.
We're grateful to Chris for never skipping our tea time.
Yes. Otherwise, we would revolt.
Yeah, I would never skip on tea time.
Oh, no.
Here's a sidebar that we can cut out. But what's your favorite tea? If you guys don't have one, I'll just cut this out. But
I have a lot of favorites, so it's hard for me to say. I drink a lot of chai. That's probably what I drink the most of.
good chai, like a tiny little splash of milk and like a little tiny bit of sugar in it, like just enough for the mouthfeel, right? That's amazing. Yeah. I'm with you. Like I think like a good chai. Darjeeling is probably like also one of my favorites. Like I
Ooh.
really like the earthiness of that.
Nice.
Do you drink tea, Will?
On occasion, if I want to calm down, it's usually like chamomile. If I want to get a little pep in my stuff, it's Earl Grey. And if I need a little flavor, it's oolong. But
Earl Grey hot.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Gotta go the Captain Picard route.
Yeah.
Actually,
kept
a
him
London
looking-
Fog is really good too. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what were you gonna say, man?
I was just gonna say the Earl Grey has kept him looking the same age for 40 years. So
There's got to be something to it. I should switch
Magic.
off coffee.
Well, Well, there you go. There's your little there's your actual tea break for the podcast right there, talking about our favorite tea.
Thank you.
Sweet.
And now I'm gonna go ahead and pull a quick side quest before we transition to Goodwill Hunting. This category is teamwork makes the dream work.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm going to read the description of this because I think this is a new one for this year and to the podcast in general. So this is talk about. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I heard tea work, not teamwork.
Teamwork, yeah.
Tea does work, and it makes the dream work.
Sorry, I'll shut up about tea.
No,
No,
you're fine.
don't stop.
It's just now it's the theme of the episode. So this one is actually perfect for the today's episode anyway, but it's talking about a film that you think was made that much better because of perfect casting. So speaking of Michael Biehn, Tombstone is a film
Yeah.
that I think like you read that on the page and I'm sure there's some good bits, and but like every single person just about in that film, from Bill Paxton to Powers Booth to Val Kilmer,
Yeah.
like somebody else delivering those lines of Doc Holliday like in a different way than Val Kilmer, like you're gonna groan, like, but then like Kilmer comes in and just fucking kills it. I think that's a great example of how you have the right cast with a mediocre script and you got movie magic, like in a way that just works. And it's like everybody understood the assignment. That movie's so soap opera-y, but like there's just conviction from everybody in the cast. Like there's even like little tiny cameos that like I forget about like every time, and like so I watch it and I'm like, oh shit, I forgot like this person's in this film, this person's in that film. See, you're nodding along. You've seen Tombstone, I'm assuming, Will.
Absolutely, but it's been ages, man. And I'm glad that you brought it up because I would watch that movie again in a heartbeat. I mean, I agree. You mentioned like so Kilmer, you've got Paxton, Michael Biehn, you've got Sam Elliott, you've got Kurt Russell. So yeah, dude. Like I remember like vaguely like the basic plot, and for the characters, but overall, like I couldn't tell you much about the film. I just remember liking it a lot. And for the
Dude.
same reason that you mentioned, just like the actors that are in it make it that much better. So
And I mean, like, so even so, like Stephen Lang is in that, and he plays the big bad in Avatar, both 1 and 2, like the colonel who's like ripped and he's really scary. He plays a complete coward in Tombstone. Like he's got like a big mouth, and then like anytime like there's violence or like things pop off, he like begs and he snivels, and he's like so great in that. And it just kind of shows his acting range. But yeah, I don't think there's a wasted performance in that entire movie, like really. Famous
I forgot
also
Charlton Heston was in this. What?
yeah, that's one of those cameos I'm always like, oh holy shit, yeah, I forget you're in this for like 5 minutes, but also famously troubled production, right? Like that's a film that I think like uh so Kurt Russell kind of ghost directed like after they fired the director like 3/4 of the way through filming. So it's a little uneven, but again, I think like you got everyone that like just instead of phoning it in and being like this is disaster, just gives it their all. And it works. Like again, it's a soap opera, like in Western like like wrappings, but I don't care. It's great.
I haven't seen it. All I can say is holy mustache.
Yeah, it's great mustaches.
Yeah.
It's cheesy as fuck. So like if you watch it and you're expecting like an Unforgiven or something, like it's not that like at all. But yeah, I love that it's become one of Marianne's favorite movies. Like so her helicopter squadron and the Marines, like all their like imagery and stuff was like based off of Tombstone, but she had never seen it. And then like we watched it probably I think even after we got married, like for the first time, and she's like, yeah, I see why everyone loved this. This movie is great.
I feel like it falls in between like so it's like oh, what was it? The Quick and the Dead is like super cartoonish, and then you've got Tombstone's a little bit more into the realistic but the soap opera-y, and then you get into like the serious Western stuff. So if that sort of like puts a gauge more on where that's at.
Yeah, I think like it's maybe not a step like as far as the Sam Raimi like Western,
No.
but it's not too far off at times. Like genuinely, like there's some bits in Tombstone that are just like you're like, oh, this is so fucking cinematic, like in kind
Yeah.
of a bad way, but in a way that's so bad it's good. Like, yeah. I
Okay.
point like one of those stupid clickbait things, like some like there was like a little thing like pointing out I never noticed when Val Kilmer's like wasted and the guy's like, you're so drunk you couldn't hit nothing, and he's like, well, I got two guns, one for each of you, like because he's like seeing double or whatever. He twists the guns in like opposite directions, which I've never noticed. I'm like, so I was like,
Ah,
okay, I learned something from a clickbait like image, whatever. That's cool.
cool.
Huh.
Thanks, internet.
So yeah, that's your assignment, Will, this weekend. Go watch Tombstone.
Oh yeah, gladly. I volunteer as tribute. I'm all over it.
Yeah, it's not historically accurate at all either, May. So just prep yourself from that. If you're like doubt, so like when you're watching it, like yes, like
What? I wanted historically accurate hats on those cowboys.
yeah,
And historically accurate mustaches.
yeah. Well, the mustache is actually like maybe I don't know.
I'd be like, actually.
Sweet. Well, thanks for letting me share that that example. I think that really does perfectly encapsulate teamwork making the dream work. And now it's
Yeah.
time for Mr. Rotondi to guide us through the discussion of Good Will Hunting, which decidedly different kind of vibe than Tombstone. Just a little bit.
If Tombstone took place in South Boston, yep. Actually, it's probably closer to like, oh geez, what's that one that we watched? The musical? Oh my god, I can't believe it's
West
not
Side
coming
Story?
to my. Yes,
Yeah.
I couldn't think of the name. God, this is why I'm terrible at this podcast, you guys.
For our audience, we're filming this like, during the week, like which is something that we kind of like out of necessity during football season have started doing, but like usually we film on Sundays where I think all of our brains are a bit more like refreshed. So it's okay, Will. You're doing your best. We're all doing our best.
He's
Mine
trying.
Mine smooths out a lot by this time of the weekday, so don't worry.
Sweet. I haven't gotten to baby Godzilla level yet, so it's like,
Ah,
as long
piece
as
of
I don't
shit.
reach that and get drop kicked, I think I'm good.
You just start bleating.
Meh. uh yeah, so Good Will Hunting. Awesome. Yeah. When did this movie come out? 97? No, I'm kidding. So Good Will Hunting is a film directed by Gus Van Sant. It stars Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Stellan Skarsgård, Minnie Driver, and several other people, including Robin Williams, who for some reason on the list of characters that's popping up here is not at the top and should be rectified. But Robin Williams is the reason we're here, so definitely gonna mention that guy's name.
Yeah.
But the story itself, all kidding aside, the story itself is about Will, who's played by Matt Damon, who works as a janitor at MIT, who is secretly this math genius, but he's he hesitates to try and do anything beyond just working as a janitor because he's got a lot of emotional trauma from when he was growing up in the foster care system. After hours, when he's cleaning floors, he'll stop by Professor Lambeau's classroom and he'll work out math problems that Lambeau puts up on the board out there. And one day, Lambeau is like shocked to see that there's an answer to this equation that to this math problem that he's put up on the board, and he's trying to figure out who it is that's done it. Right around the time that he finds out that Will is the guy who is responsible for solving it so quickly, it's the same time when Will ends up going to jail for punching a cop or assaulting a cop. And so or I should say Lambeau, makes a deal with the judge to try and make sure that Will doesn't go to jail. He ends up getting him counseling sessions with Sean, who is played by Robin Williams. And it's through those sessions that we see that Will learns to get a little bit more comfortable with taking risks in life and going beyond the safety net of what he's established in South Boston with his friends, including Chucky, who's played by Ben Affleck, and takes a chance on having a relationship with the love interest in the film played by Minnie Driver. And by the end of the film, not only do we see this, this relationship that he has evolved with Sean, with his friendship that evolves with him, but also then we get to see him, Will, take a risk and go out into the world and try to see where this love interest is going to go, with Skylar, who's played by Minnie Driver, who's gone out to, I want to say, San Francisco by the end of the movie.
I
But
think Stanford, yeah.
okay, yeah. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I remember this film getting. I feel vaguely like I remember the first time I watched this movie, but I was definitely like middle school, I want to say. Was it? So it was 97, so probably, or even younger than that. And then um and this is going to be like the most random thing to comment on, but I remember it was around the time where my mom had asked me if I wanted to watch it, and which, that for some of the stuff that's in the film might be kind of weird, but it was like she asked me if I wanted to watch it, and then she was like, it's not gonna be like an action movie. So it's like, I guess I was young enough to feel like I needed to have some sort of like, I don't know, some sort of like action movie or conflict that was going on the screen in order to stay entertained. And I was just like, no, I'll watch it, it's fine. And even for being really young when I saw it, like I really liked this movie. And so I am excited to hear your general impressions about it and to go through some questions specifically about Robin Williams and why I mean, besides the Oscar that he got for supporting actor in this movie, like why it is such an important role, I feel like, in his career. So, but May, I'm going to turn it over to you first to get your feedback on what you thought.
I'm just imagining from that anecdote you said, you talking to your mom and being like, is this a kissing movie?
I know. Grandpa, what did you read this thing to me for?
That's very cute. I watched this for the first time in college, so I was like relating hard to the like love story between Will and Skylar and all that, and that's like where all my focus was. Whereas this time I'm just like really thinking a lot about Sean and Limbo and kind of like, I don't know, like their complicated kind of estranged friendship that like had more in my focus this watch for sure. As well as just the interaction between Sean and Will, because I've been to more therapy now. So yeah, so it was interesting kind of seeing like how my attention shifted. I still like it a lot. I will say the stuff that when I was in college, I was like, oh, this is like such smart, quick banter. Fell a bit more flat for me this watch. There are still some really funny back and forth though between Will and Sean. Their chemistry is amazing. I love for Robin Williams that he got to be a very serious and heartfelt character while also still getting to be very funny, but just in this kind of dark and subtle way. And yeah, I just really appreciated his performance. I think this was a great pick for the category.
Yeah, I agree. Some of the lines, I feel like just the whole like setup in the bar when we first meet Skylar, and you get like that one like preppy dude who's trying to sound very pompous and like he knows all this stuff to basically embarrass Chucky, who's trying to hit on, I think, either Skylar or the girl who was with her. And then Will steps in and tries to like one up that preppy guy. And I feel like back then that sort of dialogue probably was like, oh, this is very, I don't know, this is very smart, this is very witty. Because in some ways it sort of made me think of like, oh, so this is like the evolution into the stuff like we get with like Aaron Sorkin, where it's like we're just here to listen to characters talk to each other, like very quickly and very like having all these obscure facts that they just throw out at each other that everybody seems to know. And so, yeah, I agree. Like going back and watching it, I'm like, yeah, but only in the sake of this movie do they probably talk like that. Like, I don't. I'd just be more impressed if somebody in the bar would actually like just strike up an argument and it sound like that. But yeah, good points.
It makes for a good moment, right?
Sorry.
Like it's like it's one of those things that like it's so well executed that you're willing to totally like overlook the illogicalness of that whole entire exchange, right? It's fun, but Yeah, no, I mean, Good Will Hunting's just it's an amazing film for a lot of different reasons. I think that there's like an authenticity to it. Like it feels very much of that place, and I think that's because the people that wrote it and are starring in it like have a connection to that city, and I think it's a really important aspect to why the film works. Um, I was curious because I was like, why didn't this win more awards? Like, what was it up against? And I was like, oh yeah, As Good as It Gets and Titanic, like, and LA Confidential. Like that was a big year for cinema and like really memorable films. So I think that's all the more impressive for me that Robin Williams took home the Oscar, like given the people that he was up against. I know Greg
Mhm.
Kinnear and I think Cuba Gooding Jr. were nominated for As Good as It Gets, and then you have probably a litany of people with like Titanic and LA Confidential. And I think it's well deserved too. Like, um, while I like Will Hunting as a character, I think like Sean, like every scene that he's in is like the more magnetic of the two people, and is really the emotional anchor point to the whole entire film. Like he's the key to unlocking the things that lead Will to, sort of the maybe not happy ending, but like hopeful ending that we get at the end. And I don't know, I love everything about this movie. When I rewatched it a few months ago, it had been like probably 20 years since since I had seen
Mhm.
it, like probably like right when it came out, honestly. Like, and I was just so pleasantly surprised by like how wonderful it still felt, and like how well executed everything was, and just came together nicely for me. So this will be one I'll probably watch more often than I did previously, because I was like, oh wow, this really held up. And it is a nice reminder of like the acting chops that Robin Williams had.
Yeah. I also think too, it's nice to go back and see how people try to eavesdrop on other people's therapy sessions, but yeah. Stellan Skarsgård, man, just as an aside, like his sort of like, I don't know, overbearing, hovering, creepy professor hitting on students, and also like trying to just like sit in on these therapy sessions, was just like, yep. Didn't remember that, but old enough to know that's not appropriate now.
You're like, fuck off to GD Prime, Baron Harkonnen, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, there you go. Yep. Go back to Marvel. No. So yeah. I just bring it up because I feel like I just try to troll you guys about Marvel these days, because I'm just like, if I throw the dice, maybe it'll like will spark another argument. But
Playing with
uh
fire, Will.
yep. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. So Robin Williams, like, first off, I agree with you, Chris, too, like with the competition that they had for the awards. And I am curious, from some of the other stuff that Robin Williams has done, like, are there any other films that you've watched of his that were very serious, that sort of also stood out to you, comparable maybe even to this, in terms of the fact that we usually think of Robin Williams as just like this, spastic, energetic, goofy guy, and yet can do some characters that are either very deep, very um, either dealing with trauma, or in some ways are also like very creepy. Like he's done some very good, he's performed the creep factor very well in a couple of roles that I've seen before. So I was curious to see if there were any other movies that kind of stood out in that vein. And Chris, I'll pass it back over to you first.
Strictly like for dramatic stuff, there's
Okay.
two that come to mind. Dead Poet Society being one, and then What Dreams May Come, which is
Yeah.
another. And that whole entire movie is about grief, and if you've not seen it, it'll wreck you, like if you have any kind of heart. But those are the two that really come to mind, for sure.
Nice.
Good
Was
Good
it
Morning
anything?
Vietnam to some extent, but sorry, yeah, go ahead.
No, no, don't apologize. That's good actually. So tell me a little bit more then about, like, because for Dead Poets, I've seen it. It's been a long time though. Of what it was that sort of stood out to you most about about the character.
Similar to this film, like he's interacting with people that are much younger, and he's coming from a place of experience. Like it's kind of youth versus experience, and you have that mentorship kind of role. Like, yes, I mean, he's a clinical professional in Good Will Hunting, but like there is sort of a mentorship there, right? I would argue a little bit about life. So I think like you can draw that line pretty easily between the two performances. As far as what dreams may come, like I think it's definitely the grief aspect, you know, like that's a film about a man in search of his deceased wife and like the afterlife, and it's very trippy and sort of like weird, but it's about grief at its heart, and you can almost like imagine Sean in an alternate universe going on a similar journey, just because of the way he sort of talks about his wife. I mean, like, gosh, man, like she feels like such a real character because of the weight that he has, like when, you know, like in his delivery of the dialogue about like you feel like you know her so well, and I guess more accurately, like you feel his love towards this person. That's not an easy thing to do. Like he's never interacted with anybody on screen. This is something he's had to purely build in his mind as an actor, and like tell these stories and make you feel that like as an audience, like he truly loved this person deeply. Just the way that he smiles, remembering, you know, some of the more fond memories or funny memories, and the way he gets angry, you know, at will. Like it's just not an easy thing to do, man. But yeah, those are the two roles I'd pick for that reason.
Well, Chris picked one of my mind, which was going to be Dead Poet Society, but a couple others that have been more serious. Ironically, I am going to say Patch Adams, because I know it's about a clown doctor, which sounds very silly, but that shit gets heavy. There are some really dark plot twists in that.
For sure.
And a lot of it comes down to kind of talking about like, what do we owe each other? What do you owe the patients that you're working for? What do you just like owe other people in general? And I think that the way he portrays Patch Adams and kind of going through that journey of figuring that out is very moving. I'm torn between two very different options as well. August Rush, which he plays kind of a villain character there. I don't know if you guys have seen August Rush, but
I haven't.
yeah, it's about this kid who is like, I don't know if like orphaned or something, or like ran away from his parents, somehow separated from his parents, and is like very musically talented. And Robert Williams kind of like takes him under his wing, but in a way that's like very clearly like not good and taking advantage of the kid. And like is such a scary villain, and to this day I don't know if it's just because I'm so used to seeing him as like a lovable, relatable character and it's jarring to see him be creepy or what. But so that was good. And then another one that's kind of like not a great film he was in is Bicentennial Man. And
Oh,
I think
no love
Bicentennial
for
Man's pretty
Bicentennial
decent.
Man.
I think it's decent.
I loved it as a kid. I just pulled it up now and it has a 37% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay,
The people
fine.
don't agree with us.
I think
but...
we decided Rotten Tomatoes can suck it. Even though it's an aggregate, I think that was our my feeling. I'll own it. I'm not gonna try and bring the group in.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but I remember enjoying it well enough.
Yeah, and I remember him giving very moving speeches on like what it means to be human and like, you know, arguing for the humanity of him as this really old robot person who is by all measures besides organic, basically human. Yeah. And just like is very good delivering kind of speeches in that role. But yeah, I would have to say I agree. Good Will Hunting stands out from those for me because you get to see a lot of range and a lot of different emotions coming from that character. And he does get his like little monologues that he gets to do, but that's like not the only moment you see him shine. Like his face acting is very expressive. You can see in just his body language, like how well he's communicating things just through that. And I think it really shows the different layers he brings to acting. And the subtle kind of very smart dark humor, which I think is fairly authentic to like his natural kind of humor, is very nice to see.
Man, I'll tell you what, if I was looking for a therapist, I would I would talk to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, and this is going to be really weird for me to throw out as two examples because I don't remember. Big surprise, I know. I don't remember much of either of these movies, but I know I watched them. And one is 1 Hour Photo, which I just remember how creepy I thought Robin Williams was in that movie. Um, and then he was in something with Al Pacino that I
Insomnia.
think,
That's a Chris Nolan film.
yeah, I know. And I'm like, surely I would remember this. And I don't remember. I literally remember nothing from this movie except the fact that they're in it together. So I think Tombstone and Insomnia are gonna like go back up on the list
Films to
because
watch. I've not seen 1 Hour Photo or Insomnia, so like,
oh
and
man,
I feel like they're ones I should have by now, especially Insomnia. But
I just remember being very anxious watching 1 Hour Photo about how it was going to turn out and just thinking this is not like he's just a very creepy character. And I don't remember enough to have any other opinion beyond that. But I liked it because I was like, I am creeped out by this, but I am also really impressed with how much it creeps me out. So in that vein, it's just like you see certain actors that you think that you would never imagine them in that role. And then you're just sort of like engrossed in watching how they're going to continue to portray it. Not necessarily to the same vein that I would feel like with Heath Ledger as the Joker, but kind of on par with something like that, where it's like, you would never picture that person doing this. And yet here they are, and they're actually doing a really good job. So, yeah.
I'll throw one more out there that just dawned on me when we were kind of going through the filmography. Jack maybe is not well thought of. Do you remember that
Oh,
movie?
yeah.
That's one that like I felt like I cried at the end. Like, so
Yeah.
it's like a kid. It might be a real disease. It might be something made up for the film. I don't know. Like, you'd have to like pull it up. But he basically is aging like his body's aging much faster than like his brain, and so like he looks older. He's bigger, and so like basically by the time he's in like I don't know like elementary school, his like body's like 30 years old, and like he knows he's gonna die very quickly, and like it's Robin Williams being silly, but I feel like he had some good moments too. Now I'm curious. I'm gonna look that up really quick. It's gonna be like 15% on Rotten Tomatoes or something like that. But
I feel like, isn't that with Fran Drescher? Wasn't
that was
she?
directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Oh my god.
What?
Yeah, it does have Diane Lane, J Lo, Fran Drescher, Bill Cosby,
Oh
and
my
it
gosh,
is a
dude.
real thing. It's called Werner syndrome.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, so it's just been like forever, and it's got a 17, so 2% more than I predicted.
What's the what, all
That
right,
is a
so if we're,
wild cast too. Jesus.
yeah, for real.
It probably doesn't
There's
work now, but at the time I remember thinking like he did all right.
just for shits. Is the what's the rating on that Godzilla movie that you hate so much?
Oh, all
Yeah, we
monsters
could
attack.
yeah, we
It's
can cut this. I just want to since we're riding the Rotten Tomatoes train, man.
all monsters attack has 25% on
What?
but it's only 8 critics. It's only 8 critics, so like
The
we're gonna
aggregate
say
only
there's
had
some
so
like
much to work
there's some
with.
diffusion there like for good old Jack, but I guarantee you I'll have more fun
Nice.
watching Jack.
All right. Oh, cool. It diverting you guys off into random trains of thought. So I guess back then to Will Hunting. Is there a particular scene with Robin Williams in it that really stood out to you the most? I know this is sort of a loaded question because I know that Chris has already mentioned like, and it's okay if you want to say this again. I'm not going to take it from you. It's the scene where like Robin Williams is talking to I'm sorry, where Sean is talking to Will and telling him like, it's not your fault. Obviously the most powerful moment in this film, and I will not argue if that's what you want to go with. And you can both go with that. That's perfectly fine. But I was curious if there were any particular scenes that really stood out to you that you wanted to talk a little bit more about.
Can I pick two that are back to back?
Yes. Yes, you
Well,
can.
essentially back to back. I
Or yes,
really
you may.
like okay. I really like seeing the contrast between when Will comes in and kind of like pulls his usual shtick of like going around the room and trying to pick Sean apart in terms of like who he is and what he's into and what his weak points might be. And the shock on his surprise, on the shock and look of surprise on his face when Sean reacts violently to him actually like really picking at the wife. And kind of the fact that he hasn't really seen that repercussion from people in authority. He's only seen that on the streets, I think. At least since he was a kid, and like how surprising that is to him. And then when they go and walk over to the duck pond, and Sean very kind of calmly explains what he thinks of Will. It's just so interesting watching their different tacts, where it's kind of like, I'm not going to tell you what you are. I just know all the things that you aren't. And that's why I, got over what you said to me earlier, because you're a kid and you don't really know what you're talking about. And I was like, that's a lot of maturity. And I think it was probably really great for Will to hear Sean kind of explain like why he's forgiving Will for really pressing him on the wife stuff. And yeah, I just thought it was a really good example of like good therapizing, I guess. Not the chokehold part, but the later apology.
Sometimes you just gotta choke a bit, you know what I mean? Like, Will kind of deserved it a little bit. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, don't choke your patients, please. If you're a therapist and listen to this podcast, hopefully you don't need me to tell you that. But like, if you do, here's your reminder: you should not choke your patients.
Yeah. Do telehealth. Stay safe.
Get booted from the conversation when it gets, there you go. Nice. Yeah, no, definitely good stuff. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, like my favorite moment is definitely the it's not your fault. Like, I mean, it just, like I said last episode, I'm in puddles by the end of that, because it's just great acting from both of them, and it's such a cathartic moment, I think, where you get like this breakthrough, and it's like the first time that like I feel like Will's guard is fully down. Like, it slips a couple times like in the movie before then, but like, and I think just the interplay between them is so great. If I had to pick like an alternate, it's probably the first time that Sean gets a little bit protective or defensive with Will to I don't know why I'm spacing on Skarsgård's character. Lambo, thank you. Where you can kind of see that he like for the first time is taking ownership and responsibility over like Will's like care and well-being. I think that's a really, really like great and powerful scene, and good bit of little character development too, that like if you didn't know already from the fact of like where he's working, the job that he chose, and sort of all the other things that point to Sean being a guy that cares more about life than money. Like, I think it's sort of it's a nice like little reminder for the audience, that there's more to him, and that he does actually feel some responsibility for Will, beyond just trying to like check off that, all right, we've done X amount of sessions and we've gotten him through his court mandated, therapy.
Actually, off of that, it sort of made me think about like, I like you had mentioned the first part where he gets defensive, where Sean gets kind of protective, and I like where it just sort of explodes with Lambo when they're arguing in Sean's office over it, and Will overhears some of it and then walks in, because that, I don't know, it was like you're finally like, at least for Sean to just be like very direct about how Lambo is acting, and his sort of just always being so self-centered about everything ultimately, that I thought was, I don't know, it's one of those things where you were sort of waiting for it to happen. You're like, I don't know when it's going to happen, but it needs to happen at some point. And then it's just like, yes, like it's sort of like when you imagine arguments with people and you're like, if you could just like tell somebody to their face how you really felt in a very like succinct an accurate way, like that would be it.
Oh,
So
you've
in
never
some
done
ways,
that. It's great. It's not always constructive,
yeah,
but like it's
no,
cathartic. Like
Tell us how you
yeah,
really feel, Will.
I know.
I encourage you
Working through my
sometime.
feelings, guys. Look, all right. When I find that ET character, look, we're gonna have some words. So
I told you, man, like one of these days I'm getting you down here and we're gonna get you on the ET ride. We're gonna like the three of us are gonna sit in the front. We're gonna put you in the seat that has ET popping out of the basket, and we're gonna work
yeah.
through all those feelings. And just like Goodwill Hunting, we're gonna like rub your back and be like, it's not your fault. Bro. It's not your fault.
Yeah. I might need a picture beforehand. It might make it better. We could,
Well, that's great because right next door to where ET is the Simpsons area that has the Moe's bar. So we'll go get a picture at Moe's.
solid. Well, along with that, before we kind of start to wrap everything up, I wanted to see if there were any other aspects of the film, character-wise, specific scenes, could be the plot, pretty much anything that stood out to you about the film, taking it kind of a step back from Robin Williams if you want to. We don't this isn't necessarily about him or the character of Sean, but just anything else about Good Will Hunting that you want to make sure that we cover before we wrap up. And Chris, I will pass it back over to you.
Yeah, I just like I love the bow, like the way they put a bow on this like film. It's a payoff that like it's a little cheesy, but you have the speech from earlier in the film where Chucky is like, like what I hope is gonna happen is that I come up here and I knock on the door and like you're just like gone. And it's very similar to like what they do in The Dark Knight Rises, where
Yes,
Michael Caine's like, sometimes I fantasize about looking and seeing you. Like, it's like it's the same exact kind of ending, like in a way. But I love how they kind of intercut like that with Robin Williams like reading the letter, and it's such a like you get such a warm feeling. I mean, who knows? Like maybe it works out for him, maybe it doesn't, but it's just the bright little nugget of hope that's like at the center of there. And as cheesy as I know it is, like I think it's a wonderful ending to a film that feels like earned, I think. So yeah, that's again face acting I'm a big fan of. Ben Affleck does like great face acting in that in that whole entire sequence. And so does Robin Williams too, like reading the letter. And then of course, son of a bitch stole my line. It's great.
Yes. I read that was ad-libbed actually, which was like, yeah, because I kind of feel like you would expect that with Robin Williams in anything that he does. And so that was a pleasant surprise to hear about that. Also, for Will's car, man, like good luck. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think your chances with stuff working out with Skylar are better than that car making it all the way to San Francisco. Let's be honest.
Look, he's a genius, bro. He's gonna like he'll go into the woods, he'll make some fucking flying machine like straight out of like a Da Vinci drawing and helicopter the rest of the way there. It's fine.
Oh my god. Can I share some pet peeves that I have about this film?
Yes,
Sure.
please.
I love all the parts that Robin Williams is in, and then I have a lot of pet peeves with the other stuff. My two big ones are one, just kind of like the trope of like chosen one, but specifically because it's like you're smart. And just like I don't know, the way they describe his genius is just very unrealistic to me, because it's like, yeah, you can have people who are very talented or a savant in one area, but that almost never applies to every single kind of knowledge or learning, and it just kind of doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Maybe it's because I'm not a genius. Maybe
Are you saying like if I don't read more books, I can't be a Will Hunting? Is that what you're saying? Like, that's what I took from the film. Is that you just got to read enough books.
And it's a trope that bothers me.
Yeah.
It's just like chosen one, but it's like, oh, we need him because he's super smart, and we're not defining that in any way that makes any sense. So that's always bothered me. And then I'm sorry, Chris, I hate the ending.
Oh, it's not even December. You can't bring out the Grinch yet.
Nice.
Okay, like
Nice.
it's not December yet. Oh my god. Here we go.
And I hate it because I get him going off and doing his own thing. I love that. I hate that they had to make it about the girl, because I'm like, dude, you told her to her face angrily that you don't love her. you then
It's a defense mechanism, and it's about the Robin
you
Williams
then when
wife
she
thing,
called
you know?
when she called one more time and was like, hey, like, are you sure? He was like, bye.
Yep.
And now, without calling, no nothing. He's just driving out there and expecting things to work out.
It's John
And
Cusack with
I
the boombox, you know? Like,
I don't even want it to work out for them. That's doomed.
oh
That's
my God.
hellish.
Chris, if you got time, do the little X-ray vision of the tiny little heart or just superimpose it like the Grinch, like over May. Oh my God.
They both deserve better, okay?
I don't
mean, if I
disagree.
was
I don't
her, I'd be
disagree. It's
worried
one of
about
those
him
like
hitting the
it's a movie
wall,
logic
you know?
thing. It's like Casablanca. Like if you
Yeah.
stop to pick apart those relationships, like on any level, oh my gosh, like there's so much toxicity in that, but it doesn't matter because like you know it's bogey and anyway.
I know. I would have felt a lot happier for him if he was just driving off to another city. No clear picture of what he's going to do, but he knows. He knows. He doesn't have to tell anyone else, but he knows what he's going to do, and that's clear. Like he has figured himself out. That would have made me so much happier. Just leave Skylar alone. She's in Stanford. She'll find a man.
May Finch holds a grudge, y'all. Like, so don't get on her bad side.
Solid.
And that's it. Otherwise, I love the movie. Sorry.
It's okay. As we've said, like we don't always have the same opinions, and that's what makes discussing film great.
Yeah.
Also, you have a tiny, tiny, tiny heart, cold, black thing, but it's okay.
I just want them to find better people. Yeah. Come on.
He's gonna have to work on his anger management a little bit. Can't just be slamming walls next to people's faces. You gotta be careful.
Yep.
Yeah, he needs to find a therapist that'll really choke him like out, and you know, somebody bigger. He needs to graduate to some guy with like a wrestler's like. Yeah.
I do have a random question because it amused my wife. Well, I shouldn't. It amused me at how much my wife did not like it. But when when Skylar's like, "Hey, psst, I got a question for you. Come here," and she leans in, and I'm sorry, my phone just went off there, so I'm gonna redo that for your editing. But when Skylar's like, psst, "Hey, come here. I have something I want to tell you," and leans in and just like slobber kisses him. My wife was just like, "Oh, what the," which I loved, and so I just wanted to share that. So yeah. Rachel, I love you, and I your opinion matters to me, so I'm putting it on the podcast.
I've literally, not exactly that thing, but like sometimes you know how it is, like you're trying to take photos and there's like a sweet spot where like the posing and everything is well and it's natural, and then it's like you're trying to get like a better one, and then things kind of start to like fall apart because everyone's like thinking about it too hard. Mm-hmm. I have literally licked the side of my wife's face like just to like get her to like loosen up and like laugh and like you know like more just to you know get a reaction. So I sympathize for the slobbery kiss. I think like that's the kind of dumb shit
that I do. Like, no, kissing's all right. Just like watch the food.
I wouldn't do it in
like,
public, like you know what I mean. Like this, like you're talking like family gatherings and shit, where it's like,
yeah, oh, just in front of your family.
Yeah,
it's like grab and then like,
yeah, just like one big long like tongue stroke up the side of the face,
like a cartoon character, like a Scooby Doo.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, it works though, man.
Yeah.
Not thinking about like getting the perfect pose anymore. She's too busy punching me usually.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Solid.
I thought it was a cute move personally, not whatever Chris is describing in the movie. Yeah. But I agree. The kiss is very aggressive. Like I think it's cute if you're like going for a little kiss, but it was a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So nice. I understand where your wife's coming from, Will.
Awesome. I think overall, like as a character, I remember really liking Minnie Driver and how she portrayed Skylar in this movie. Like I know there's not a whole lot that goes on, and that's just sort of unfortunately, that's just kind of the realm that a lot of female roles ended up with. But like, I just really believe that she cared about Will. And I just thought she was a really good actor, and I think that was the first thing I ever saw her in. Granted, I haven't seen too many things since then with her in it. She pops up now and again in the stuff that I'll watch, but like I really liked the job that she did with what she had. So,
Yep.
Gonna give a quick shout out to Minnie Driver.
Oh yeah, she's in Our Flag Means Death too. I saw her recently.
What?
Yeah.
Nice. Oh man, another reason to watch that show. Still haven't, but I know you guys like it. So
Indeed.
excellent. Well, I think that's pretty much it for what I've got. So if you guys are good as well, then we will transition over to a quick lightning round of
One quick hypothetical question for you.
Yeah.
So we talk about sequels and prequels. Would you watch a prequel called Bad Will Hunting? That's that's about like Will Hunting just being like at his worst. Like
I do kind of want to see all those court cases he got himself like acquitted from.
yeah, no, me too, man. Like that's like that. I'd watch that. If nothing else, like maybe like a short like parody sketch like on SNL or something. I think there's a Jay and Silent Bob or Kevin Smith movie where they parody the How Do You
Yep.
Like Them Apples like thing. It's in one of those films, and it's got Gus Van Sant and like the same actors and everything. And like anyway,
Yeah, isn't it like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back? Because I
yeah,
read about that too, where it's like, because I remember watching the movie and I vaguely remember them pitching a sequel to Good Will Hunting, and I didn't realize that Gus Van Sant at the time when I saw that he was in there and had a cameo. But I remember, or at least I didn't remember it having happened. And then also just the fact that like Kevin Smith's pretty much the reason why this script that Ben Affleck and I'm sorry, that Matt Damon and Ben Affleck wrote for this film. So it's it's only
I
I don't
think I
know, it's only
was.
fitting that it would be like honored then later in a Kevin Smith movie.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Like I couldn't remember which. He made a lot of stuff in the '90s, and if it was
Yeah.
Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back, I was way too traumatized from something that happened earlier in that film.
Oh,
I wasn't like old enough to go see it like without like a parent or guardian, so we went with my friend's mom, and I will tell that story off the mic because I will
sweet.
turn a shade of red that's deeper than anything on the screen currently. Like like if I have to tell that story, but yeah. Anyway, not a good movie to see with your friend's mom. Like we'll put it that way.
We've all we all I think we all have those stories.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so yeah.
Ellie, look at the Ellie dog. Oh my gosh.
Aw, puppers.
Ellie, you better come to D&D next week.
Oh.
I wish. I don't think she get along with the kitty cats.
Oh yeah, true.
She was
See you.
bothering me, and if I pick her up and annoy her, she usually leaves me alone.
Oh.
Well, I'm sorry, Will, to derail that with Bad Will Hunting, but
No, don't apologize. That's why A, I appreciate you editing this stuff, and B, that's what it's here for. There's no plan. Trust me, you listen to me ramble on about like a bunch of stuff that has no bearing whatsoever on half the stuff we talk about. So you're good, buddy. Um, I was trying. There was something else too that came to mind. Oh, just something random that I remember reading through too, like as a surprising making of fact, which was that John Lithgow apparently was the reason why they were able to film at Harvard because like they
ah,
tried to at first. And I don't know how he found out about it, but he reached out and I guess made a phone call and got permission for them to do that, which I thought was really cool.
I wonder if
Uh,
he's see like alumni maybe or something.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
Usually that's
like,
like those connections. Like if it's not just straight cold hard cash with Ivy League universities, it's like some
mhm,
sort of connection to alumni. But that's cool. Talk about some
yeah.
guy that can do funny and scary. Woo.
Yes. Oh man. Yeah. Him for
Trinity,
next time.
Trinity Killer and Dexter. Like one of the
Oof,
I still have nightmares, like literal nightmares about that character. But anyway.
Hmm.
nice. All right. Well, guys, any other thoughts? Last minute thoughts, questions, concerns, emotional.
I shared all my concerns.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, if you got some time for it, I've got a little lightning round of keyword countdown that we can do.
Oh
So
yeah.
before we jump into it though, Chris, I'm gonna have to ask you to do me a solid and do your intro for it because you do it the best, and also I want to make sure that we give credit where credit's due. So if you
Yeah,
would please.
no problem at all. So yeah, Keyword Countdown is a game that is created by Gavin Murphy of RKG Video, who are still playing through Elden Ring. It's a very big game, so they have a playthrough right now, and just recently put out a ranking of all the houses at Halloween Horror Nights from this most recent year at Universal Studios. We are using it with permission from Gav. Gav, thank you so much for letting us play. You should check out RKG Video at the link that I'll include in the episode description. Ah.
So the film that I've got isn't really related to what we've watched, which is somewhat of a clue. But I've got 10 keywords to guess it with, and then I will give you the final answer if you are not able to do so before then. So
to explain for the audience really quickly, he's going to give us 10 keywords from imdb.com in like somewhat subjective, like descending order from like least obvious to most obvious. The quicker, the sooner that we guess it, the more points that we would get. Is it just the one film today? So it's like all
just
or nothing?
The one.
All right.
Or nothing, man. All
All
or
right.
nothing. Points do not matter. It's all or nothing. It's like whose line is it anyway? The points do not matter. So, first keyword: father-son relationship.
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Would be a great choice, but no. All right. Next keyword: female in a shower.
Psycho.
Captain Ron.
Nope. Next keyword: man-child.
Okay.
Jack.
Nope.
Clifford?
Aw, no.
Okay. Not like the dog. There's like a movie with Martin
The
Short
big red
called
dog?
Clifford,
Yeah.
called
Aw.
Clifford. But
You saw where my mind went, Chris.
yeah. I, was like,
Like-
I need to clarify. Like,
You're named after the dog.
Yeah, keep going.
Next keyword: orphanage.
Hercules.
Hercules. Nope. Next keyword: belief in Santa Claus.
The Santa Claus.
Nope. Good guess though.
Miracle on 34th Street? I don't know.
Aw, nope. Next clue: shopping mall.
National Lampoon.
Nope. Next clue:
Bad Santa?
oh, go ahead. Yeah, no. But but good guess, because that was pretty funny actually. That was not what I expected you to say, Chris. So that was just like
It's been a while since I've seen that, so I was like, maybe.
solid. Next keyword: Jack in the Box.
The fuck?
The most obscure list of subjective keywords.
Nightmare
ever
Before
devised.
Christmas?
Nope.
Damn it.
Toy Story.
Nope. Next keyword: one word title.
Elf?
Yes.
Oh
Ding,
my
ding,
God,
ding,
yes.
ding.
Oh, good job, Chris.
God, man,
Yeah, for sure.
the amount of genres and eras of like everything that went through that was a roller coaster. Where I
Yeah.
was like, what is this?
I would like to see like that meme superimposed over your image in the video of like the equations slowly like zooming in as you're trying to think about what.
Maybe I'll put the Greg Miller meme where he's like, there's stuff. But yeah.
Yep, the last two I think that I had up here were last two keywords that I had listed, or clues, I guess, since there's more than one word, is cotton-headed ninny muggins and Gimbel's department store.
Nice.
Nice.
So thank you both for playing. Chris, congratulations for getting it. And also, we're just about riding into that holiday season, and I think Elf turned like what, 20? So
What? Shut the fuck up.
No way.
we're
Did it?
old.
Oh my
Let me
God.
see.
Don't say that.
Turn 20. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see. Yep. Is
Oh,
turning 20.
wow. Well,
Yeah.
that is a good reminder. We have one more traditional episode that we're going to do before we pivot to our winter holiday season, where it'll just be holiday films of our choosing. So that is a nice pick, Will, and a great way to help us segue.
Mhm. Thanks. And thank you
Who's
for
ready
playing.
to see what our final traditional episode of Screen Quest is going to be around
For the
Let's do
year.
it.
for the year? Yeah, sorry, not ever. Like the podcast is fucking over.
You keep spraying this on us every year, Chris.
That's right.
All right, I'm gonna give him like an extra long shuffle here. Ah, oh man, what a way to transition into the holiday season. It's gonna be our first Pass the Tissues, which
Oh
is our
no.
tearjerker category.
Oh shit.
So after we've just watched a tearjerker,
Prepared us. Prepared us for the pain.
let me see what the tearjerker is gonna be, because like as is my normal tradition, I totally forgot to pull up the list of films. It is going to be Will pick.
Ah.
So this will be your final one that you have to do for a while, Will. Unless you want, do you want me to reshuffle? You've
No,
had
no,
two
no,
in a
no,
row.
no.
Like
Like
if you're okay with
we're
doing
on the
this.
feels train, man. We're gonna ride it.
I
Ride it
believe
all
this
the way to the
might be
station.
a film that you talked about either in the very first episode of Screen Quest or within like the first couple, and that
Yeah.
is Life as a House.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yay.
I'm really like I'm kind of excited that this came up on the list. So
Yeah.
obviously don't spoil
Awesome.
the film, but
Mhm.
I know you have an emotional connection like with the film. Like why did you pick this? Like just kind of briefly.
So when I watched it, and I'll be candid about it, it was when I was a teenager and going through depression. And something about this movie just really, the weird thing is it's not so Hayden Christensen's in it and plays kind of like an emo kid. And it's not his character that I was like connecting with. It was just the relationship that his estranged father, played by Kevin Kline, is trying to like reconnect. And there's something about it that just really got to me. So by the end of it, I was just like, every time it's like water, at least it was when I was a kid. When I was a teenager, it was like waterworks every time I would watch like through to the end of the movie. And this is not to say that I'm not like bashing Hayden Christensen by any means. It was like it was one of those performances of his when he was younger that I actually thought he did a good job at. You know, he got a lot of flack for like, you know, Star Wars back when it first came out. And so watching this, I was like, oh, hey, it's this guy. It's actually pretty good. And the cast is great. And yeah, Kevin Kline, man, there was just something about that relationship that I just really, and I've got like a good relationship with my dad, so I don't know what it was, but it was something about it that just really got to me in like a good cathartic way. Like I felt good having watched it afterwards. So
Good.
yeah.
Well, I'm very, very excited. Yeah, I've not seen this film. It's one of my mom's favorites, and Marianne actually really likes it. So I appreciate you nominating it, and I really can't wait to talk about it. I think Hayden Christensen gets like unwanted hate. Like the Star Wars stuff, I don't think is really like 80% of that's not his fault. Like,
No.
you know, like when the script says I love you, and like your response is no, I love you. Like, and that's what you got to work with. Like, I'm gonna say that like you probably did your best, you know, but any event. I've heard this is like a really good performance. And there was like another movie called Shattered Glass or something. I think that he was in. That's I think I could just be making that up, but that's supposed to be really good. But yeah, I really can't wait to watch it, dude.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll see if it still gets to me as much as it used to. So
yeah, you'll have to give us a an update. Like we'll do like a little tissue meter, like that like
it was 5 tissues in. No. Yeah, we'll see. I'll bring the beer. That might also,
There you go.
Always helps. Well, that about wraps it up for this week. We, as always, appreciate the support. Thanks for hanging out with us for another week to talk about films. You can find us on Twitter at ScreenQuestPod. And as I said in the episode description, you can find out more about RKG Video and a couple of other fun things. I am going to have those cards worked into the pile for the start of next year for the fan submissions. Thank you for sending those in. Sweet. And after next week, we'll have a run of holiday films, beginning with The Christmas Prince, May Finch's pick from last year that sadly COVID had other plans and we didn't get to watch. So very, very excited to watch that. But
just be glad I picked the first one and not the third one.
What happens in the third one? I watched the first one. What's going to happen?
Oh, you'll see.
She's like, the triple feature,
find
out. Yes. Until next time, we hope you have a happy Thanksgiving if you are celebrating. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.